Welcome to the collective. Today I have Chet Renato from Rhino's Comics and Collectibles here with me as a guest. We're going to talk about the Pinnacle Hill Collection and this great find that walked into your shop several months ago. When did you first hear about it?
The collection itself was from a gentleman that comes in my store once in a great while, but his son is a frequent customer of mine. And what happened was, we'll call him Steve. He came in one day and he goes, "I got some books I'd like you to look at," and it was all Silver and Bronze Age Batman books and Captain America, and they were gorgeous. So, make a long story short, he brought me the books. This story's gonna be long, anyways. So he brought me the books the following weekend. It was like, I say the last week of March, maybe early April. I can't remember specifics at this point because it's all a blur now. But the books were beautiful. The Batmans were gorgeous. You saw a lot of them.
Yeah.
The Captain Americas were just like, what? These were like off the rack. I mean, they still had some of them were still bubbling like they just came off the rack. They were even laying flat yet. That's how freaking nice these books were. They were gorgeous. So I'm like, okay. Then, after he brings that to me, he goes, "I got something else I want you to look at for me because I don't know nothing about it." I'm like, "I don't know. Well, it's comics. I'll look at it." Sometimes it's like you poo-poo stuff and not knowing what it is, and it's like, well, yeah, definitely, because these books are nice. It's got to be something cool. So he brings this book in, and these books are all in binders. There's approximately 9 to 12 per binder, 6 binders in a long box.
Right.
So I proceed to open one up, and right away, I'm like, holy cannolis, So my mind immediately went to, what do I do with these things? Because they were all Black Hood.
Yeah.
They were all the MLJ stuff that I know nothing about.
You didn't recognize the titles.
I don't know nothing about them. I mean, I know I've seen the characters before, and you see these Nazi covers, and you're like, wow, this has got to be something cool. I don't know. I mean, I don't really, you think you know everything, but when something like that walks in, you're like, I know nothing, and that's pretty much where I was at that point. Yeah. I'm like, I was thinking about Mike, but I'm like, I don't think this is something up his alley, but it might be, so I called Mike.
And that was around mid-late March.
Yeah, that was probably early April.
You looked
through the Batmans.
Because I remember you called me up and you said, "You're not going to believe I was so busy. What happened?" But I was busy that day. A guy comes with a bunch of books. The Batmans were beautiful, and you said, "I don't know what the Golden Age books were. I just saw these bright yellow covers." Yeah. You put a table outside to sort through some of the books to look at them because it was so busy in here. But I remember you telling me, you got to see these. Yeah. I mean, they were just spectacular. You talked about the binders. I had no clue. I mean, I think you mentioned S.H.I.E.L.D., and I said, okay, I know a couple of those characters.
Yeah, there was S.H.I.E.L.D., there was the Black Hood, and there was Hangman.
And
I think maybe Jackpot might have been in that first cadre of books.
So he just brought a couple of binders.
Yeah, we bought one long box with 6 binders, and they're all facing nose in. Mm-hmm. So as I picked up the binder, I opened it up and cracked, and I'm like, wow. I'm looking at these things. And they're all in, what are they, Kodak sleeves?
Yeah, they were like these big film, like 11 by 8 roughly.
Great.
Heavy plastic.
They were kept beautifully because some of these books we're getting back now in the emails from CGC, and they're like 8.0s, 7.0s, 9.4.
Yeah. Now, at that point, I did say Pinnacle Hill because we talked about it previously in another video, but you didn't even know the extent of the collection. No, all you knew is you had a bunch of really nice Golden Age books and a couple boxes of bronze.
In the business, it's like being in a barber shop. You a lot of this all day long, and it goes in one ear and out the other. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really know the extent of the collection that came out of Rochester called Pinnacle Hill because that's
the previous one.
Yeah. So to make a long story short, which is going to be again, so it made it so it was. This was actually books that were never put into Heritage back in 2010.
Yeah.
These were books that languished here in Rochester, and the gentleman who had them passed away, and this gentleman that brought them to me was his nephew. They were left to him in will.
Yeah, some will estate.
Yeah.
Did he tell you the first time when he saw you, these are books that I inherited? These are my uncle's?
Yeah.
Okay, so you knew right off the bat.
Yeah,
that
I knew
there
was something
there.
because he was like very not astute to anything that he had. And
Yeah.
but like the Batman and Captain America books, I paid for them because I knew they were nice
That was a
books,
separate transaction.
and I had to, I bought those outright and sold them in my store. And he wasn't a dummy about those numbers. He knew that those books were nice, and he wanted some money for them. And I had to come up with some cash for them. But it was fine. I had no problem with it. But when I got to these books, the MLJs, and I'm like, I go, look, I could do an assessment on them and get an idea what they're worth, but I have no clue. So I broke down some numbers, and I'm like, dude, I could do X, Y, or Z. I gave him some options, and he decided to allow me to call Heritage and set up the situation with Heritage to get rid of them. And he was kind enough to bring me and Mike along for the ride on this. And that's kind of how we are with these books now. And they're going to be going up for auction at Heritage on September 9th and 10th.
Yeah, and I remember, so backing up to like late March, early April, we had a parking lot sale.
Yes.
And you told me, you got to see these books. We got to get together. I think you showed me some of the books in the back room at one point, and I was floored. I'm like, oh my God, these are not only are these nice condition wise, but extremely scarce.
Yes.
I mean, most of the titles I've never seen. I've seen Shield Wizard. I've seen a couple of Hangman before. I've seen some of the
Black Hood. Those are.
I've seen the Black Hoods. I never saw the Jackpots before.
Was it exciting? Zip?
Zip. I've seen a lot of Zip. I've had a Zip comic or two. But yeah, for the most part, these are just really rare and scarce.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about, what to do with the books. And, you offered them a couple of options and such. And then at what point did you know that he had a complete collection of MLJ books?
He told me he was going to bring them by, the rest of them, to have me check them out. And I said, well, if you want me to assess them, that's probably be the best way, so that everything's in-house and I can look at everything. And, I went through each book individually, did a spreadsheet on them, which I gave to you.
Yep.
And I just took a quick, I never took them out of the binders, so I didn't know if they were going to be dilapidated, if they were going to be disintegrated. I had no clue.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at them through the binders, because the binders were clear on both sides, so you could see the front and the back. And some of them I'm putting down 3 5s or 6 O's, and later on we find out that they're some of them are
Nicer
7 5s and 8 O's, and I'm totally floored by some of the numbers that we're seeing.
Yeah, it was amazing because you slowly started asking me, what do you think of this, and take a look at that, and we got some books in here, and the picture slowly unraveled that he had not only these MLJ books, but he had a complete run. Condition was fantastic on the most part, except for 2 books were missing.
Yeah.
Archie #1
Right.
and Pep Comics 22. And that's when he first mentioned Heritage, because he said my uncle sold a bunch of books to Heritage. And we still didn't know it was the Pinnacle Hill Collection. We just knew that something special about this. So, he said they sold the Pep 22 to Heritage back in 2014.
Yes, I think that was it.
The original collection was sold in 2010, but he must have held on to some of these books.
Yeah.
And then, we got more information about, okay, your uncle must have had a lot of books in his collection. I'm thinking there's some other pieces missing here. I think I asked you, isn't this weird? He's got Batman, Captain America, and nothing else.
Yeah, there was like a couple obscure titles in there. I think there might have been like an Eternals or something weird, just like some just like some weird Bronze Age books that had no rhyme or reason to Batman or Cap, But I figured Batman and Cap, he's probably a Golden Age fan and liked this Batman and Cap, because who wouldn't from the Golden Age? And lo and behold, they turned out being the Detective 27 was in this.
Yeah. So we'll jump onto that, and that was the part I was getting to was, there's got to be more to this collection. Who just buys this very focused run of books? So where's the rest of the books? And that's when we started talking about options. And long story short, the collection was too valuable, and it wouldn't be fair to him to say, we're going to purchase this, you're going to purchase it,
right?
We'll do something.
I couldn't
we talked about collaborating, but in the end, I think he had the best recommendation. He said, why don't all of us work together and try to bring this to market? We talked about Heritage because he had sold books previously. His uncle had sold books previously. So we contacted Josh Nathanson at Comic Link, who was very nice, very supportive. I mean, he spent an hour answering all of our questions. I think we were this close to saying, let's just go with Comic Link. Sorry, Josh. But we wanted to give everyone an option to talk. So, I reached out to Heritage.
Yes.
And that was I think around April, I'm going to say the 15th or 16th, the middle of April.
So actually, this thing might have came in at the end of February. Then that's how much I might be off by a full month.
Oh, yeah. So you might have walked in sooner.
Yeah, I might have walked in sooner. It was just a blur at this point, and then, with just business being as busy as it is, it's just hard for me to remember dates.
Yeah. These collections are funny when these big ones show up, out in the community. I mean, it takes sometimes years to get information and to get the collection in and to look at it, understand what's going on. But yeah, so mid-April is when I reached out to Josh, and then I reached out to Heritage, expecting some kind of interest level. I sent them a short list of books. At that point, I had the books in my possession.
Yeah, that's right. I gave them all to you because
I was doing some conservation work.
Yeah, you started looking at them.
So I sent a couple of photos, some of the better books, to Heritage. So Josh called back immediately. I mean, Josh is the CEO of Comic Link.
Yes.
Right back, he said, I want to talk to you guys. He was very accommodating. We talked to him. And the funny thing is when I contacted Heritage, I expected to get some, second, third tier level support guys saying, okay, what do you have and what books do you have? And instantly, I got a call the next morning from Ed Jaster.
Yes.
And he was in New York City. Now, I didn't know at the time, Ed was in New York City managing the Promise Pedigree collection.
Yes.
So he was traveling back and forth, and he goes, I'm going to stop in Rochester on the way back to Dallas. And I said, well, we're not ready just yet, but we'll coordinate a time.
Yes, we didn't sign on to them right away. We were still given Comic a minute.
Yep. So this was over the course of about a week, more or less. And we set up a time. You came over to my house, and we did a conference call with Lon Allen and Ed Jaster. And that was an amazing call, because right off the bat, Lon Allen said, he goes, do you know what you guys have? And we still didn't quite know. And he goes, I know the person you got the books from. I know the nephew. I've been looking for this guy for years. The original owner had passed away in, 2019?
I think so.
A little over a year and a half ago. But he goes, I know the person, and he goes, these books were in blue binders. And that's when I'm like, how did you know this stuff?
Yeah, he knew everything about it.
So,
great.
Cut to the chase, they had been up here in 2010 buying the better part of this collection. And this is the missing part, where I said, why does this guy not have more books? But they had been here in 2010 and basically picked all of the Timelies, all of the DCs, and that became the Pinnacle Hill Collection they sold in 2010. So at that moment, it just blew me away, because if you know anything about that collection, that had the Detective 27, which graded as an 8.0, the first book to sell for over $1 million.
Ever.
So
that's pretty crazy.
Quite literally, I mean, these books were in the same box, same
area,
laying on top.
I know. I wonder if those books were held like that in binders, or were they bagged and boarded?
Well, there's a bunch of stories. I mean, so Lon and Ed did come up a week later to look at the collection on the 24th and 25th of April. We scrambled to get things together. We decided to go with Heritage. In the end, they had a better... it seemed more contiguous, or at least there was some affiliation because they had sold the previous books.
Yes.
Plus, with the Pinnacle Hill Collection, we can use that same nomenclature, the same moniker, which I think carried some weight. And they worked out a fantastic deal with us. I was very, gracious for what they did as far as doing the commissions and such. And plus, they had the backstory. They had the stickers. They knew the books, and they told us things like Lon said when they got that Detective 27, it was in a Robert Bell bag.
Oh, that's right.
And the guy bought it. The owner had bought it somewhere because he traveled to conventions buying books. Most of the books were bought secondhand. Bought it for $100 in the 60s. And it was in a Bell bag for 30 years, and it's still graded as an 8.0.
That's crazy.
Nuts. Just crazy.
But just think about, $100 back in let's say you bought it in 1970. $100 is a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Grandma would have given you a fresh one. You're not spending that money on there.
There was stories of back in the late 60s, one of the big dealers back then, Howard Rogofsky, who sold comics through the Marvel ads and the comic books for many decades. Howard bought an Action Comics #1 for $500, I think in 1969, at a comic show. And that was the biggest deal ever at that point. People were talking about that nonstop. So a $100 book is in that same ballpark. That must have been crazy. And that's what Lon and Ed said. They knew the original guy. They said he had actually been picking out some of the better books. He wasn't afraid to spend the money.
Yes.
And he actually had a connection locally with Jim and Tony at Empire Comics.
Right.
I think, filling in the story gaps, I think he talked to Jim and Tony and asked them, you'd come in every so often, chit-chat, and want to know what new books do you have. Maybe a couple of collections walked in. I mean, Lon did say that there was a policeman that came in one day that had a big portion of these MLJ books. So a chunk of them came from one original owner.
Sure.
And then this guy had purchased those books from the original owner. So I'm thinking there was some collaboration there. But also, the nephew had said he traveled to New York City quite a lot.
Yeah, he traveled a lot.
And I'm guessing he went to like maybe Metropolis in the 80s, 90s, maybe early 90s to buy some of these books. So he wasn't afraid to spend the money.
He wasn't
and
shy.
He traveled to these different places.
He was not money shy, that's for sure. Obviously, some of these books, who gets all this? It's like you have all the DCs from the 60s in one location. I mean, that's hard to do. It's a lot of books. I mean, there's only 214 books here. Or
214.
Still, it's a daunting task in the 60s and 70s to put something like that together.
Yeah,
without the internet.
Just I don't know. I mean,
huge.
They're hard enough today to put together a collection, and as a lot of you guys know that are watching this, I mean, MLJ having a complete run, even doing this today with unlimited funds would be near impossible. So I'm just blown away at the fact that
even today with the internet, it's impossible. Something like this. I mean, you look up any of these books in the census. There's 2, maybe 3 that are graded.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, and even though these grades I would say are roughly mid-grade, like probably a 5 to 6 is average, that's still better than the majority of MLJ books out there. So I'm going to say 10 to 15%, maybe 20% of these books are the best known copies.
Ever. That we know of, right? Of course.
And we did go with Heritage, so they're grading all the books right now. This is the 20th of July. I think we've got roughly, 80 to 100 books graded so far.
Yeah, I think we're close to that. I'll do an inventory tonight, actually.
And
I'll let you know.
There's a few insane grades. I mean, you graded every book. I thought you were just a hair conservative, which is good. I did do conservation work, so hopefully that bumped the grades up roughly 0.5 point. But we're seeing books come back 2, 3, 4 points higher. There was a 9.4 Zip Comics, which you guys will probably see by now, but I think you had that down as like a 6.
I think I had it at
5.
7 or 7.5.
But there's
it's
crazy
just crazy. But then again, I never took them out of that binder because I didn't want to touch them because I'd rather give them to the guy that could fix them if they get broken.
If they fall apart.
I have the dexterity of Bigfoot, so it's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
And I just figured I'd give them to somebody that could touch them and nurture them and make them all better. That's the way I look at it.
So while we're talking here, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show in the background here just kind of a montage of all the books. So I have a picture of every single issue.
I see what you're going to do. Cool.
So basically, as we're talking here, you're going to see the actual books as they came out of the binders.
Oh, so they're going to be. That's what you're going to do when you put this, edit this together.
Yeah. So I've edited this video. So right now you're going to see behind us here every single book in this collection, ungraded raw as we got them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, all of them. So you'll get to see every single issue. And also part of this, so back to the story, the 24th of April, Lon Allen and Jester came up here to look at the books. They flew up, came to my house. We brought over the nephew to take, a look at the stuff and talk to the 2 guys. And he goes, I've got some more stuff.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, this never ends. So he had what he called storyboards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, artwork? And he's like, yeah. So he brought over some framed artwork. Nothing too spectacular, but it was fun seeing Ed and Lon look at this going, wow, this is amazing. So there was some Zip Comics original artwork. He had 2 books in this collection that I think he held back. Originally, they had purchased or they had taken a lot of the books to sell at Heritage in 2010. But he had Silver Street Comics number 7 and Startling Comics number 11.
Yes.
And they were already in cases. They already had a Pinnacle Hill Collection sticker on them. So he must have put them in the auction, changed his mind, withheld them. We couldn't figure out why. Well, the Silver Street Comics, obviously, because the cover is so unique and rare.
That's what the yellow claw.
The yellow claw. Yeah, the claw, yellow. And then there was Startling Comics 11. Now, we figured out the reason why was because he had one of the pages, original artwork pages, to that Startling Comics number 11.
That's right. I remember seeing that one now. Yep, you're right.
So they're going to sell those 2 in the September auction. By the way, we asked to put in the signature auction. September 9th is, the auction date for these books.
So those are the closing dates, though, correct?
Yeah, that's the closing date.
Like early August or next.
Bidding starts
3-4 weeks.
In August, but the closing dates, the live portion at least, is on the 9th, and then the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th. They're going to have some of the books in the Sunday auction, some of the lesser valuable books, but I think they're going to put the big ones in their live auction format. So that'll be. I just can't wait to see that.
It's going to be amazing because some of these books are, especially if they're going in with this Promise collection. Some of the books are trickling into that, so I mean that's going to bring people into this collection as well.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are just gonna. It's just gonna. It's going to be a eye catcher for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You're not going to see all these MLJ books in one place ever.
I mean, I would dare to say it's the only time there's ever been a complete run of MLJ books at an auction, minus the 2 books, which sold previously at a heritage auction for crazy money. I think 147,000 for the PEP 22, and something like 112 or 10,000 for the Archie #1.
Those are probably almost $1 million books at this point.
Archie #1 was 8.5. PEP 22 is a 7.0. Double that. They're probably 600,000. Yeah. So, but I won't scoff at what he brought to us, because that's just amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just it's pretty mind-boggling, and it's hard to, like I said, when you first see these things, what do you do with these? I don't know what they are. I mean, I see Golden Age books, but I see Shazam. I see Superman, World's Finest. You'll see Fight Comics, or you'll see stuff from like all those, not Charlton, but who was it? Harris and Fawcett. Those are all, they're all prevalent. They come around. But Plastic Man, you see that stuff. Black Hood. It's like, well, and if you see a Black Hood, it's usually it's a rag.
Yeah.
But these were nowhere near rags, and I was just like, this has got to be something pretty special in them. Yeah. And I'm just, my Catholic guilt would have got the best of me if I just said, "Hey, dude, I'll give you like 50,000 for them all and walk away." He might have taken it. I don't know, but I can't. I just, in my heart of hearts, I can't do that to people. So, but he was nice enough to, like I said, he brought us along for the ride, and the exposure that it's going to give my store, and
absolutely,
and it means a lot to me that I was honest with the guy, because that's the only way I know how to be. So.
Yeah.
Hopefully it works out in the end.
Yeah, you can't measure that. I mean, it could have been a totally different market. I think we got a little boost here because the Promise pedigree is out there.
Yes.
So we're going to be alongside the Promise pedigree, which is good and bad, but, it explains why Lon and Ed were kind of a little subdued. I mean, when I was talking about some of these books, I thought they'd be more excited, but they had Promise pedigree on their brain. And when I talked to Ed about the Captain America Comics 74, I said, this Silver Streak 7, I love that cover because it reminds me of Captain America 74.
Right.
And that's when he said, well, we've got a 9.2 coming up to auction. And I go, where? Where does that come from? He goes, well, we have this Promise pedigree. And I'm like, ah. So he trumped us with their 5,000 super high grade Promise
Captain
pedigree.
America books. What are you going to do? I mean, those are cream of the cream.
And they had previously gotten those books out of this collection. They had a Captain America #1 in this collection. It was a Pinnacle Hill #1 Captain America. But, hey, for what it is great. I'm happy. The timing was great.
Yes.
The owner, the nephew, was fantastic to work with. Everything was just falling into place, and like you said, it gives some notoriety. This is a town known for some big collections, and it just never seems to end. I mean, who would have thought? This is 2020 or 21.
Yeah.
The guy passed away last year. That there'll still be these golden age collections like this that haven't come out. So who knows what else is out there lurking?
I just think the whole Northeast is like that. Just people don't realize the amount of collectors that live in the Northeast of America, because it's just such a good place to, because you have cold winters, you have decent summers. It's not net.
Yeah, it's great for storage, like out west. So, any closing thoughts here before we wrap it up?
No, I'm just looking to be excited about the final numbers on these books. I think they're going to be pretty great.
Yeah.
Stop in, check them out. If you're ever in Rochester, stop by the store, Rhinos Comics. That's it, Mike. I appreciate the time.
Definitely.
This was a good little interview. I liked it.
Definitely stop in, check out the store. You never know what's going to walk in. You've gotten some crazy books here from time to time.
Yeah, some really nice stuff.
And, if you want to check out the Heritage Auction, it's going to be the September signature auction. And I'll post this video out there on YouTube so you guys can watch this. And I'll put a couple other posts in various places, some of the CGC forums. But I'm sure a lot of guys will want to get a piece of this, because I know there's some real hardcore MLJ fans out there that have been looking for some books, sometimes for their whole life, and they'll take what they can get. So hopefully you guys...
There's be some nice scraps out there, guys.
Yeah, hopefully you guys are lucky if you're digging for a piece of this collection, or you want an MLJ book to fill your collection. They're all here.
Yeah, they're all here.
They're all here.
And like I said, there's just no rags. I mean, you're going to get a 3.5 or a 3.0, but guess what? It's not a rag. It presents well, believe me. The colors... Even on the 3.5s, the colors are astounding.
One thing you guys won't get is you won't get the smell of the books, unfortunately. I mean,
Yeah.
they smelled newsstand fresh. Coming out of those little
they were
binders, they had not been taken out probably since the 70s.
Yeah, probably.
And they were just, not only immaculate condition-wise, but they had that nice smell. It wasn't that old, decaying paper smell.
Yeah,
so.
3.5s, and the colors, the reds are red, the oranges are orange, the yellow. I mean, Golden Age books, yellows and reds and greens.
Glossy.
Everywhere.
Yeah, they were very glossy.
A lot of Nazi covers, guys.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
a lot of bondage covers, a lot of Nazi
nuts,
covers. So
that's beautiful.
It's going to be great watching that auction. I can't wait. I'd pay like
I think
pay-per-view prices.
I think it's a good idea. We should set up here.
Yeah.
Get some pizzas and popcorn.
Yeah, I'd
some
do a
couches
pay-per-view
up.
if I had to. That's that. I mean, I'm more excited to see the sale and the auction than actually looking at the books for the first time.
Yes.
What
Especially
it's going to do to the
because we're
community.
so far beyond it now. We're just ready to let it go now because, you think about it, life goes on. So here we are. It's, the end of July already, and
Couple of weeks,
6-7 weeks away. These things are gonna be gone.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see where they go for. It's gonna be great. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're all set. Yeah. Thank you.
Beautiful.
And thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye.